This week, I am finally going to do something that I get asked about all the time, and that is to give a reading list or recommended reading list. These are specific books that I attribute to helping me improve my own life. So I would say kind of all areas of my life as well as trading. And these are books that I highly recommend that you read also if you haven't already. Now, when it comes to this, I'm presuming people ask because they're looking for some sort of value from the books. I am a little bit of a value vampire. So I like to take value from the people that I speak to if I can. So this is not an exhaustive list. If you have books that you recommend that you think help to improve your own life, please let me know, because I'm always looking for new reading lists. Okay, so what I'm also going to do is I'm going to post these books into the description section. So the people who just come to the video, they just want to know the books, they don't give a damn about my thoughts about them or why I recommend them. You can read it down there. You can jump onto Amazon, you can order them if you want, and then you can go on about your day without having to listen to me rambling on. Okay, so one of the, I would say, surprising things probably for most people about this reading list is that there's not going to be trading books in here. Well, there's one trading book, and it's the one that I go on about all the time. The reason for that being that I have not read a trading book, and I've read lots. I try and read at least a book every week to 2 weeks, and I went through a phase of reading nothing but trading books. I didn't really get any value from trading books. They just weren't useful. They didn't help me improve as a trader. But there are a lot of books out there which are kind of aimed at different aspects of life, which helped me massively with my trading. So the first one, and unfortunately, I don't have the book for this one. It's in a box somewhere upstairs or on a shelf upstairs somewhere, and I just can't find it. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. I highly recommend that you read that book, because what it kind of does is it takes a statistical look at an enormous group of people. It's actually from America. And it kind of segments out millionaires, and it runs through all the different things that they do and how they live their lives. And what it did for me is it really opened my eyes and changed my thinking, because we all kind of have this mindset of what a millionaire is, and it tends to be, you know, the things you see in music videos, or if you see people on YouTube and they're kind of flashing the cash. It's the person at the bar, you know, getting the bottles of Cristal or Ace of Spades champagne and just, you know, throwing money around. What this book did was it really went in depth and showed me that that is kind of a large portion of people in the world who actually don't have a lot of money at all. The real millionaires, the real wealth builders, do things very, very differently. And the reason it's so valuable is because it helped to change the way I approached money. It changed the way I think about it and the way that I'm trying to build wealth over the long term. Because I used to think it was all about flash cars, lovely houses, you know, holidays in 5-star resorts, etc., etc., etc. But when you start to read this book and you really look into it, you start to understand that the people with real wealth don't tend to live that way, and that is certainly not the way to build your wealth. So the second book is The Power of Habit, and this is by Charles Duhigg. I'm sorry if I am pronouncing that incorrectly. So this book is very, very useful because a lot of the time when we're struggling with things, it can come back to us saying things like, I'm just lazy, or I just procrastinate a lot, or that's just how I am. Also, when you're trading, you tend to develop lots of bad habits, which gets you stuck in a rut and which you don't really know how to break out of. The Power of Habits looks at sort of scientifically how habits are formed, and how things that we kind of think are ingrained and just part of us are actually just habits. Because once we understand that, we can start to look at them more in depth and start to change them. And it also goes into how to change your habits and how to develop new, healthier habits. It's so, so useful, especially if you find that you're going through trading and you're doing things like, just repeating the vicious cycle of emotional trading. Very likely you're in some bad habits, and this really helped me to change the way I think about who I am and the things that I do. So the next one is kind of a doubler. It's Happy by Derren Brown, which was actually recommended to me relatively recently, but after finishing reading this, it reminded me of another book that I had read, which is called How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. And this one is by Robertson. So both of these books kind of look at Stoicism. Now, Stoicism has a lot to do with analyzing your thoughts. So not just allowing your thoughts to kind of control your life, not just having a thought, thinking, okay, that's me, I'm having this thought, it must be accurate, it must be correct, and then kind of having emotional responses depending on what those thoughts are. It's kind of, if you know about psychology, there's something called CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. That, to me, has kind of come from Stoicism. It's an evolution of Stoicism. The reason this is so useful is because, especially as traders, we very easily can get caught up in negative thinking, and we can get caught up in things like fear of missing out or revenge trading, and the whole kind of cycle of destructive behavior. Looking into Stoicism and starting to understand that your thoughts are not necessarily accurate and starting to learn how to analyze your thoughts is very, very useful for helping you to kind of sit back and take a detached view of the charts. But it's also very useful because trading can bleed into other areas of your life. So after you've had a fantastic day of trading, I'm sure if you've been trading for any length of time, you know that you kind of go through the day and you're kind of bouncing around and you're really happy, you're really jovial with your loved ones. And then if you go through a tough patch, you kind of withdraw into yourself a little bit. You become a little bit moody. Maybe you argue with your loved ones a little bit more. Maybe you don't want to speak to them. Maybe you don't want to be around your friends. And that can be very damaging in all aspects of your life, and it's something that you're going to have to face if you are serious about trading. And both of these books, so Derren Brown's Happy and How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, are very, very good for teaching you to start analyzing your thoughts and separating yourself a little bit from your thoughts. It's also very useful for helping to kind of understand your emotional responses and again kind of step back and separate yourself a little bit from those emotional responses. Very, very good books. This Derren Brown one is a more recent one, as I mentioned, but it's also kind of relates a lot to how to think like a Roman emperor. So next one is called Mindset by Dr. Carol S. Dweck. This one, again, it's kind of a little bit like the habit formation. So mindset is about the way we kind of approach problems, the way we approach the things that we want to do. And it's got a lot of research in it. I think it's, if I remember correctly, it was kind of like 20 to 30 years worth of data that they brought together and they kind of work through to come to these conclusions. It's basically about approaching something with a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. What that means is when we come to a lot of things, we tend to have this preconception of our ability. So if you think about something you've tried to learn in the past, let's just use something totally random. Let's say physics or something at school, because that's something that a lot of people find difficult. When you came into that physics class, you kind of brought a whole lot of baggage with you of maybe, oh, this is going to be very difficult, I'm not intelligent enough for this. Now you're bringing that fixed mindset into what it is that you're doing, and you already have this idea of your abilities and your intelligence and how far you can go. Now what this book does is it looks at that type of mindset in comparison to a growth mindset, and it shows you that all you have to really do is change your thinking, change the way you approach things. And it's very useful also if you've got children or a family, because it's very easy to instill that fixed mindset onto other people, especially as they're growing. Because if you say something, oh, it's maybe just a little bit too difficult for you, maybe you're not smart enough for this, it can help to reinforce their belief that they can't do certain things. Whereas if you can change it into that growth mindset, you can approach it more like a challenge, but a challenge that you understand that it's just going to take time, discipline, and learning to overcome. Very, very useful book, especially in terms of, I'd say, any type of business, but trading especially, because trading is very, very difficult. And it's very easy to fall into that mindset of, I'm not intelligent enough for this. Why did I think I was going to be able to do this? Very, very useful. Last book I am going to recommend is the one that I always recommend, and the one trading book, Market Wizards by Jack D. Schwager. Again, if I'm saying the name wrong, I apologize. Very, very good. The reason this is so good, and it's the only trading book I ever recommend, is because it is basically interviews with lots of professional traders, and they kind of update it every now and again. Very useful because it shows you that they are just human. And that's one of the things I also learned when I read Warren Buffett's biography. By being able to see that people are only human, it shows you, first of all, that they're not really different to you and you can achieve what they are achieving. It also shows you, by interviewing them, that they've made every mistake in the book. They've done everything you've done. Every stupid thing where you're sitting at the computer thinking, how can I be so idiotic? How have I done this? They've done it. They've probably done it to a magnitude of 10, 15, 20 times. Much, much worse. But it also shows that they have came back from it. And the way they came back from it was changing their mindset, changing their approach, being a lot more cautious, and just determination. Determination to learn and determination to improve rather than the focus on the money. I'm pretty sure it's this book actually which has one person talking about, he was in a trading room, and one of the things they did was they were trying to buy something. They all wanted to buy something in this trading room. And so they all kind of got into competition trying to make the money to buy this thing the fastest. And what happened was their trading all started to suffer. And they all started to either stagnate or lose money. And the reason for that is because they changed from focusing on their trading to focusing on the monetary gain. It's the most, widespread problem in trading, and it's not helped because you get emails and videos all the bloody time of professional traders saying, I made these tens of thousands this week, or this amount of money on this single bloody trade. That pulls you into the money mindset. And every one of those traders knows that it took them years and years and years to get to that level, and you as a beginner have no chance of getting there unless you put in the same kind of work and dedication that they did, which is over the span of the long term. Those videos and those things are for making money. It's a whole different thing. This shows you that wizards are human beings. They made every mistake you've made, and it also gives you some very good tips on how to improve yourself. So those are the books that I recommend. I also kind of touched on Warren Buffett's biography. It's a really interesting book because I found out that he's a bit of an asshole, to be honest. If you read that book, you kind of, he's a billionaire and it's fantastic, he's got all this money, he's, world renowned, but it kind of made me look at it and think, I don't want to be like Warren Buffett. He kind of neglected his family, including his kids and his wife. His only focus was on work, and he kind of lost sight of his life. In a sense. So yeah, that's another book that you can throw in there if you want. Those are the books that I recommend. Those are the books that really helped me to grow as a person. Now, it's not an exhaustive list. I've got books all over the house, and those are the kind of, as I was looking through, the 6 that I pulled out. As I've mentioned, if you have any recommendations, please let me know, because I'm always looking for new reading materials. As always, I hope that was helpful. I hope you're all having a fantastic start to February. I'm James Orr, and thank you.